Baroque, Fauvism, Impressionism, Surrealism. Do any of these words mean anything to you? Now ask yourself, did you really know what any of these words meant before I said them? Well, these words and many, many more relate back to artists who decided the world of art needed a change. And I'm here to help shine some light on these famous artists and different movements of art. So I'm going to start things off with Baroque. Baroque is characterized in the 1600s to 1700s range. It's classified by classical orders, forms conveying motion and dramatic effects, and it's often very, very realistic. Some popular artists you should know are Caravaggio, Johannes Vermeer, and Rembrandt van Rijn. So I'm going to speak a little bit more in detail about Caravaggio. Now, I've listed some of the places that he lived, and actually, along with the well-known painter, Caravaggio was a brawler. And many of the places that he lived, he was actually banned from and kicked out of because of his brawling problems. So through his life, he lived in Rome and then moved away because he was kicked out. And he actually decided later in life that he wanted to live in Rome again. So he boarded a boat, and nobody really knows what actually happened on the boat. Some people say karma finally got back to him, and somebody beat him up so badly that his face was disfigured and nobody ever recognized him again. Now, some people also think that he boarded the boat and got very sick and died from a very high fever. Now, the next art movement is Impressionism. Now, Impressionism is one of my all-time favorite art movements. It's characterized by separations of color and very quick and small brush strokes. So many people had a hand in making Impressionism. It was a very, very large movement. And some very popular people you should know are Claude Monet and Renoir. I'm going to talk a little bit more in detail about Claude Monet. So, Monet actually was a very, very skilled artist and went to art school. But he had awful, awful eyesight. So one day, out of the blue, he decided that he was going to paint the way he saw the world, and nobody was going to tell him otherwise. So due to this, he painted the very first Impressionist painting, Impression Sunrise, and many people believe that is where the movement Impressionism got its name. Now I'm going to move to Post-Impressionism. Along with Impressionism, it has the very small and light brush strokes, but it's also a lot of symbolism and abstraction, and a lot of people are painting things that aren't modeled for them. So they're painting still lifes and people they see on the streets. Some people you should know are George Seurat and Vincent van Gogh. I'm going to talk a little bit more in detail about Vincent van Gogh. So actually, throughout his life, Vincent was ridiculed for his work. People told him that it was a waste of time, and they didn't understand why he was doing it. But he loved what he did, and he didn't care what anybody else said about it. His brother Theo was actually an art promoter, so he actually had a big room and would sell paintings from famous artists. And actually, he was the only person Vincent actually ever sold a painting to during his lifetime. Vincent had over 2,100 works of art. And many people believe that he had bipolar disorder, psychotic episodes, depression, and delusions. And after Vincent checked himself into an institution, he moved to live in his brother Theo's house with him. During that time, Theo told him that money was going to be a little tight because he was switching career paths. So Vincent immediately assumed that it was his fault, and it was because of his costly paintbrushes, paints, and canvases. So he sent himself into a severe depression. So he actually took a revolver, wandered to a wheat field a few miles away from the house, and shot himself in the chest. However, this did not kill Vincent. He wandered back to the house and died a slow, painful death 2 days later. Now, many of the artists I spoke about today had no idea they were changing the world of art as we know it. But, as Vincent said, it is not the language of painters, but the language of nature which one should listen to. The feeling for things themselves, for reality, is much more important than the feeling for pictures. Thank you for your time today, and I hope you have learned a little bit more about a subject that I care so much about.